Hello again, how are you? Um, Ashes of Roses. Ashes of Roses. That's a very strange name, but actually, it's the name of our story. Before I start with the story itself, let's get back in time. It was in a very old times when people used to immigrate and leave their countries to go and live for in America and run after the American dream, which actually was leave your country, go to America. You will find a lot of opportunities where you can make lots of money, you can have a nice house, nice job. So people used to leave their countries and immigrate to America. Immigrate means leave their country totally and go to live in America. The American dream was not very bad. It was true for some people, not true for others. It was true for rich people because they had their money. They left and went to America or immigrated to America and they had their own money. They created their own jobs or created their own companies or whatever the place they will work in. But poor people used to look for places to work for. So they don't have money, they don't have a place to live in. They started to suffer. Of course, rich people wanted people to work for them. So they started having immigrants to work for them. But they were not treating them equally at all. And they were treating them in a very bad condition. They were actually giving them very hard times, showing them very, very hard times. Because they knew that they need the money, they need the opportunity they have. Although it wasn't really called an opportunity, it was really something bad. At that time, there was a place that called Triangle Factory or Shirtwaist Triangle Factory. It was a place where there were actually three factories in a shape of triangle. That's why it was called Triangle Factories. It was a very bad place. People used to work there in a very bad conditions. They had young girls working there, really underage young girls, really, really young, 11 years old, 12 years old girls working in a very bad conditions. Okay, let me give you a brief about the conditions. You know, they used to work in places where they had no light at all coming from the sun. They can't see the sunlight. They only had lamps inside the place. Why or how come? Because actually the owners used to dim, which put shades on the windows so no one would know if it's morning or night. They used to close, even lock the doors so the workers couldn't go out. No clocks, of course, anywhere. So all the time, whoever is working there or whoever the people who are working there, they can't identify the time, which pushed them to work more and more hours and longer hours without being able to identify how many hours they have been working or know if it's morning or night or how long have they been there. That's a very bad condition. Of course, they had very few money, which wasn't really nice. For our story, we have Rose and her family, one of the immigrants who were running after the American dream. They immigrated from their country to USA. Unfortunately, at the borders, the customs stopped them. Health inspection, normal, it's nothing unusual. But what happened actually is that they found that her younger brother had a disease in his eye that was contagious, which means it could infect other people. So they refused to let him get inside America. Makes sense, of course. He's sick, and he could get more people sick, which they don't want. So the father, the mother, and the younger brother went back to their country. Rose stayed with her younger sister Maureen. She took Maureen and they went to stay with her uncle, a rich uncle who used to live in USA. Of course, you will think that, oh, family, that's nice. But it wasn't nice at all because her uncle was not happy with them or with having them, and he treated them very bad because he thought that they were there to take his money. They were living in his house, eating his food. That's not a nice thing for him. He's not thinking about family, he's thinking about his money. So Rose left, took Maureen and they left. We went and they lived with another girl in a small place, and she went to work in a flower shop, which actually was a very, very bad choice. That place treated her very bad, long working hours of course, and they even didn't pay her. So she left and they went to work, she and her sister Maureen, at the factory with the other girl that they were living with. At the factory, of course, I told you about the very bad conditions. However, they were working and they were getting some money to live, and that's it. One day, someone was smoking a cigarette inside a closed factory. Leave it. And he threw the cigarette and it caught fire with some cloth. They tried to put the fire out, however, because everything was just very bad, everything was in a very bad condition. The water hoses for the fire, the water hoses that they used to put down fires, didn't work. They were rusty. So they couldn't put out the fire, and the fire kept spreading through the different floors of the factory. People started to panic, of course, and they wanted to run and save their lives. But they couldn't run out because the doors were locked, as we said before. So that was the start of the disaster. They started thinking, how could they survive? Some started jumping out of the windows. Of course, they died, because jumping out of windows from the 8th floor or the 9th, that's insane. No one could survive that. Others thought that we can jump actually into the elevator shaft. The elevator shaft is the place where the elevator goes up and down. So they thought that if we jumped in the elevator shaft that we could save ourselves. However, they were not really right. Most of them died, of course. It's still a very high place, from 8th floor or 7th or something. Some of them survived. Rose did the same. Actually, she jumped into the elevator shaft, but what kept her alive is that when she jumped, she fell on lots of dead bodies, which helped saving her life. She didn't die. The problem is that when she jumped, she was in a hurry, trying to save herself. When she was saved by the firemen and she was out of the building, she found and she noted that she forgot her sister Maureen inside the factory, inside the burning factory. That was a disaster. The whole story is about Rose trying to get inside the factory again and searching for her sister, feeling guilty all the time because she left her sister inside, and trying to find her somehow. Then in some part she had some nostalgia, or an old memory came back to her mind. Once when they were at her uncle's house, and Maureen told her that she would never jump from any place because she's afraid of heights. Because some girls were jumping from the 9th floor or the 8th floor and they were falling dead, of course. So she was really scared if Maureen would jump or not. She kept thinking. When she remembered that Maureen would never jump, she had more hope that somehow she might find her again. And she kept searching and searching till one time she found her, calling her name, and she found her and she asked her how did she survive. Maureen told her, I couldn't jump because of course, as we know from the nostalgia that happened, that she is afraid of heights. Rose asked her, so how did you survive? She told her that some students from the university beside the factory put some ladders between the two buildings and helped them to cross and then go down. That's how she survived. In this story, we have many themes, of course. We have family, we have guilt, we have sadness, we have fear, we have resilience also, of course. There's lots of resilience here. We have hope. Anyway, as we always say, Any theme could be correct if you can justify and say why did you choose it. Good luck. For more, of course, read your story from the book. Thank you, good luck, and see you again.